2,000 years ago, Socrates believed that the unexamined life is not worth living. Through questioning his very own beliefs and values, he found that the only way we can ever live a creative and fulfilling life is when we know who we are. To know who we are, we must engage in critical thinking, or in the art of Socratic questioning. But this is certainly not easy, and is often a long and arduous journey. It is one thing to understand how to question and critique the world around us, but it is a whole other thing to apply that criticism to our own values, beliefs, and attitudes. However, if we want to be creative, we have no choice. If we resist this questioning process, we are likely to continue feeling anxious, lifeless, and ultimately depressed. If we believe that we should not create works of art, whatever that art is, we feel that we don't exist and that we are falling apart. This is because we have grown up in a world where we are taught to think and behave in a certain way. All this seems okay until we think of doing something creative. Rather than create freely and from a place within ourselves, we are plagued by self-doubt, particularly doubting the value of what we are creating. Not because what we are creating is not valuable in and of itself, but because we have dangerously fallen for the values and beliefs that are not our own. Beliefs and values that work for some people, but not for us. So the tricky part is recognizing other people's values and beliefs and how they have influenced how we see ourselves in the world. Because we have grown up to see other people's values and beliefs as reflecting the way things are, we're unable to readily identify our own voice. When we can't identify our own voice, we find it difficult, if not impossible, to create. We are essentially trapped by old patterns of thinking that are not our own. As a result, we can't see things in new ways and can't think and do differently in new situations. Our old patterns of thinking are like a spider spinning its web in our mind, not allowing new thoughts to develop. The challenge for us creatives is to use the Socratic method of questioning to change our old patterns of thinking, patterns that have led us to believing that what we have to offer the world is not valuable, and to believe that our creative acts are not valuable is deaf to our creative self. So how do we escape this prison? To be creative requires courage. Courage to move away from your everyday automatic responses that are controlled by your old thinking patterns. An example of these thinking patterns goes something like this. We go to create a piece of work that fires us up, but we are flooded by thoughts about the work's monetary value, how it will be perceived by other people in our lives, and most of all, will anyone ever like it? So begins the pattern of thinking that we keep repeating. We think, what happens when it is not good enough? Does this mean I'm not good enough? My parents never valued what I did. Some of my teachers said I had talent but provided no encouragement other than good work or why don't we hang this in the principal's office? And around we go. This is why the Socratic method of questioning is the most important thing we can do if we desire to be creative. If we don't learn how to question our thoughts and the social conditions around us, especially how we see those conditions, for example, are they favourable to you or do they meet other people's needs but not your own, we will never get to the top of Maslow's hierarchy, the creator's realm known as self-fulfillment, also known as self-actualization. So self-actualization, as Abraham Maslow calls it, is where the individual begins creating. Because they know who they are and they have fulfilled all their other needs, they create things with all the knowledge and skills they have accumulated over time. Thus, to move up to the top of Maslow's hierarchy and express our creativity, we need critical thinking, such as Socrates' questioning process. If we don't learn how to question dominant paradigms about what is valuable and worthwhile doing, we risk living a life burning our wheels, heading for burnout, and eventually despair. Yes, you may be thinking that some people are creative without critical thinking, but indeed, they are the lucky ones. Children who grow up in homes that have parents who are aware that their creative child needs room to express themselves are indeed fortunate. But what happens when your home environment doesn't encourage this type of behaviour? What happens when you feel like the black sheep? For some individuals, questioning common ways of doing things is not a necessity. They think everything's fine and there is no need to change things. But this way of thinking doesn't work for everyone. This is why the Socratic method of questioning is so important for creatives like yourself. The method engages you deeply with an issue you are facing and encourages you to ask a series of questions that will help you realize where your beliefs have come from and what beliefs need to change. The following infographic provides a systematic process of questioning that you must use when trying to find your inner voice and find out who you are in a world that feels terribly uncreative. The Socratic method of questioning involves asking yourself 4 critical questions. The first one is, how does someone know that? What evidence are they using to base their assumptions upon? Number 2, are there any counterexamples? What evidence suggests otherwise? And finally, how could I be wrong? What are my assumptions based upon? Go to lifechanginglearning.com.au for a worksheet to get you started on this process. To sum up the Socratic method of questioning, we'll briefly look at what the method aims to achieve. Firstly, it'll help you question your values, principles, and beliefs. Through this questioning process, as previously explained, you'll try to identify the values and beliefs that guide your way of life, which are your own and which belong to other people. This involves examining your thoughts, actions, and beliefs to find out what motivates your life and what assumptions you should build your life upon. Secondly, it provides you with focus on how you ought to live. Through examining your thoughts and actions, you gain understandings to help you challenge and even refute values and beliefs that you once believed were just the way things are. You ultimately learn that an unexamined life is indeed very empty and may cause you despair if left unexamined. Thirdly, it encourages you to walk through your productive discomfort. You learn that the questioning process and its results will not be easy, but the result, if you persist, will be enhanced experiences and greater opportunities, especially for creativity and life satisfaction. Finally, the questioning process will reveal life's complexity and the necessary uncertainty about the world we are living in. You know that a comfortable world full of certainty would mean that you would not explore your creativity, and for creative people, this uncertainty in moderate amounts is necessary for their creativity. Indeed, after completing this process, you'll come to see that Socratic questioning, critical thinking, is not an ideal luxury reserved for those who study or teach. It is something that you, especially if you're a creative, should foster in yourself if you wish to live a life of fulfillment and creativity. So please see lifechanginglearning.com.au or find me on Facebook to find out more about critical thinking and living a creative life.